Welcome to Civilian Carry Radio. This show is brought to you by our sponsor tonight, Big Tex Outdoors. Their main focus is high-speed, quality, tactile EDC gear. They offer 100% risk-free shopping. That means if you change your mind for any reason at all, they will refund the purchase price, shipping costs, and pay for the return shipping. So it is 100% total risk-free shopping. Please check out their website, bigtexoutdoors.com. Use the code CCRadio for a 15% discount at checkout. And remember, risk-free shopping. This podcast focuses on the importance of the Second Amendment, firearm safety education, training, and mindset. Our goal is spreading the message to everyday people on the importance of the Second Amendment, firearms education, mindset, safety, and training. Our mission statement is gun ownership is your right, safety and education is your responsibility. I'm your host and producer, Baraka James, along with my co-host this evening, Alan Sams. Good evening, Alan. How are you?
Great. How's it going, Baraka?
I'm doing very well. And tonight, folks, we have two special guest co-hosts. We have Mr. Alex Hartman, U.S. Marine veteran, scout sniper, and owner of Ridgeline Shooting. Good evening, Alex. How are you?
Good, thanks, man. Thanks for having me back.
Hey, thank you for being back, man. We appreciate you seeing you. And our second guest co-host is Mr. Lee Williams, LEO and owner of First Person Safety out of Georgia. Good evening, Lee. How are you?
Good evening. I'm doing good. I'm glad to be here.
All right. Thank you so much for being here, brother. We really appreciate it. We are a listener-funded program, and you, the listeners and viewers, make this program possible. You can contribute to the show via Patreon for as little as $1 per episode or as much as you like. That's like $4 a month, or by going to patreon.com, do a search for CC Radio or clicking the link here in our show notes. A huge shout-out to our $5 per show Patreon pledges, Mark B., Christopher D., Rob J., Frank, CJ, James W., and our newest $5 Patreon, Russ A. Thank you so much. We appreciate your continuing support and the new supporters. The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the individual co-hosts and do not reflect the official policy or position of the Firearms Radio Network and or their employees. Viewer discretion is advised, especially on live shows. Tonight, our guest is Jared Reston, Leo SWAT and owner of the Reston Group. Good evening, Jared. Thank you for being here, brother.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Hey, we're glad that you're here. Alan, take it away, brother.
Yeah, Jared, like Baraka said, thanks for coming out. Can you give everybody kind of a background on yourself, a brief background, and maybe a couple of reasons why you got into instruction?
So active law enforcement in Northeast Florida. Been there since 2001. Been on their SWAT team since 2004. We're a full-time SWAT team, an active SWAT team. I like to think that we like to keep ourselves pretty up to date on the best practices of what's going on now. I started Reston Group in 2009 after I was shot and started touring the country and talking at different law enforcement venues and I kind of was naive, I guess you could say, that I thought that all law enforcement agencies were trained in the same capacity that I was. Like I thought that, my team was, I've had some of the best trainers, gunfighters, freaking competition shooters, everything that I've gotten. I thought like everybody got that, and I soon found out that it wasn't, and I felt that I was given a duty to now push on my knowledge into the law enforcement world.
Awesome. Lee?
Jared, I'm very excited to be on the show with you tonight. I taught use of force to our personnel on Monday, and I actually showed a video clip of you talking about the shooting related to the shoplifting event. And that's the first time I ever became aware of Jared Reston, was in the aftermath of that incident. And one of the things that I know we battle with personnel is trying to dispel a sense of complacency of, oh, it's just a shoplifting call. Oh, this is just the 7th alarm call I've answered to this building this week, etc. Is that every time they step out of that car, even if they're in the car, every time they walk out the door to go to work, that the next call may be the one where it all breaks loose. And I would really appreciate if you could talk about battling complacency and any lessons you might have in regard to that.
And with that, that's a super hard thing to do, because each person kind of does complacency at different levels. Like, this never happens, or depending on where you work in a city, like some cities there's busy beats and there's not so busy beats, you know. But there's nothing to say that anybody from the criminal side of the town doesn't cross over into your side of the town to do it. And like that's to me, and I don't want to say it's like a supervisor's job, but at some point it is a supervisor's duty to keep his guys focused and ready to go. And just a quick during roll call, just a quick talk of doing stuff and making that weekly and doing things like that, keeping up on current affairs, letting know like this is what's happening in the law. Like it's not that as like if I was a small sheriff's office in somewhere in the country, or you know what I mean, I wouldn't show New York City because that doesn't relate. But there's something that's happened in this past year that somewhere in some law enforcement small town community they've done work, and they've had to do it because someone. And that's the kind of message like you got to relate to them and pushing that out. And that's the key to this, because not all policemen are gun people. They're not. And they're not going to listen to this show. They're not going to. You have to almost force them to watch these things as a supervisor during work, or they just don't get the information. They don't know what they don't know, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I actually sent your hour-long presentation out to all of our personnel with instructions to make sure that they have watched it. And I guess a good follow-up question to the first one I posed would be, if you're teaching private citizens, how could that same lesson be related to private citizens?
The exact same way, like situational awareness, being ready to go at any time. To me, mindset's not only revolves around like an incident or something like that. It's how you live your life every day, how you check your corners every day. Like, you know, just walking around and doing different things. It's, to me, sometimes I feel like I might be overboard with it, but I'm still active law enforcement. I'm still going to burn those reps in, still going to do stuff until it's not my time, right? Until I retire and maybe my job's, you know, clipping flowers, but right now my job might be slitting throats. So that's what I got to concentrate on, and that's where I got to keep my mind focused at, of being ready to go.
Cool. I guess maybe we should back up a little bit here and give people kind of the details of the shoplifting incident. We didn't lead in with that.
No. So in 2008, I was responding to I wasn't responding. I was working off duty, actually at a mall. I responded to a shoplifting call. We had a foot pursuit with a suspect, which was about a quarter-mile long. Ended up attempted to tase him. Taser malfunctioned. Had to go hands-on with him. During the physical fight, which lasted roughly seconds, he produced a .45 caliber pistol and shot me 7 times. First one hit through the jaw, exited out my neck. Don't know the sequence of the other ones, but I took one through my left thigh, above the knee, exited out high out of my thigh. 3 across my body armor. 1 in my right buttock, a furrow through my right elbow.
Cool.
And then I was able to return fire, killing him.
There we go. I'm going to yield to Alex now because I know he had a follow-up to that.
So I think anybody that's watching this show or has heard of Jared has probably heard that story before. You know, it's been around, and you know, it's probably one of the better illustrations of staying in the fight, even though, you know, you're starting off kind of behind the 8 ball, and then, you know, carrying it through despite being impacted and carrying the day. But you've been involved in other shootings as well, right?
Yes, that was I've been involved in 4 shootings where I was a shooter, and probably 14 where people were shooting around me.
So, you know, anytime that there's one event, you know, it can be an outlier, but when you start to get that much data, that many different sort of scenarios playing out in front of you, what sort of trends or lessons learned do you incorporate into your training program now? And maybe what lessons had you learned going into that shooting, or, you know, before a lot of these shootings, that you had been given sort of advice or passed down that you were, you know, completely disproved at this point, has kind of shaped how you train both cops and civs?
Right. So through them all, I really validated a lot of the training, but with the main thing that I learned that was not right was about like trigger control and just squeezing and what your brain sees and things like that. And staying under control while doing it keeps you under control. Not all shootings are scary. My first one was scary for a second. Like the guy kind of went off, and then I started moving between two houses while a buddy was covering me, and he shot at me through the houses, and I could hear the bullet zings over my head. So I went prone, and then I went and maneuvered on him and was shot. But when I started returning fire, it wasn't scary to me because he's still shooting where my buddy was. He didn't know my position. Not all shootings are scary or like you have to be so aggressive and on it. It's just, hey man, this is my duty. This is my job. I'm going to carry it out and do it. Or, this is the decision I made as a civilian. I'm going to shoot somebody. Like he's shooting at somebody over here, but he doesn't see me. It's not always scary. It's not always the robber. It's not always that person. So staying under control, but training under control to not think that it's always going to be that scary. That's like the big misnomer, that it's always going to be the end of the world. Train for that, but if you're calm at the end of the world and be fast, not in a hurry and not, spastic, you'll probably carry the day.
Relaying that story again, the big thing that sticks out in my head about that is, you're kind of the expert of staying in the fight, one of them anyway. Where does that come from? How does, is that something people can train or, how do you get that into people that, if you're in that type of situation and things are going bad, how can we train and keep people moving forward and staying in the fight?
Man, you gotta train for it. Do you think before I got shot that I knew that that's how I was going to act? You know what I mean? I didn't even think like, oh, I got shot. Like the first shot, I thought I got punched. And my thing was just get up and fight. Like if you have a fighting mentality, then I don't think I'm some superhuman or anything like that. I'm just a dude that was put in a position that I prepared for. And it was just like, when I realized I was getting shot, I wasn't mad. I wasn't angry. I thought like I was angry, but more of like you kind of cheated me.
Right.
So I was like, hey man, I got something for you and here it is. And I'm going to fight till my lights go out. And that's just how I live my life. Like I've always been competitive. I've always done like, I'm the youngest of three brothers. Like, I don't know if it's training or just life that made me do that because but the truth is getting shot doesn't hurt too bad. It's not that altering. Like it wasn't, I don't know. It messed my jaw up. It was what it was, but it happened so quickly. You don't have time to put all that in. It's just like, hey man, you need to win this. And, I've played contact sports my whole life and just like, that's just always how I've been. Yeah, I might get knocked down, but get back up because the play's not over or whatever. You gotta keep going.
Yeah, it almost seems like nowadays some of the, at least especially in our area, we're in Northern Virginia, and it's red down here and it's blue here and here, but it almost seems like the newer recruits that you see now on the police force, they're not like the guys that we grew up seeing as police. The guys that we grew up seeing of police, they were, even if they weren't talking, had an intimidating presence, I guess, maybe. But nowadays, it seems like it's gentler, and they kind of stay away from any type of violence and backgrounds of any kind, even if it's sports and stuff like that. And I wonder how that kind of affects that, having that type of mentality.
See, I can't speak to that because I don't see that.
Right.
I see men and women coming in to do a job. The people who try to calm them down are the same ones that we got hired. I mean, I got hired 18 years ago. So those people are now chiefs and things. Then, like, I saw you when you worked.
Right.
Don't tell me about the policies that you're now adopting when I've seen you work. So I think the older, not doing work anymore folks are adopting it. But there are still folks out there doing work.
Oh, yeah.
They're doing really good work. And it's coming back. Because, I got hired in 2001. And to tell you the truth, one of my regrets in life is not going military. Because I felt the urge to serve. If I wasn't a policeman by then, I would have been out. But so all the men and women that felt that call of duty, they left and they went to the military.
Right.
But that's coming back this way. It's swinging this way. We can't sit there and harp that these people aren't ready. They're ready to do work.
Right.
We need to look at the trainers and who's teaching these people what policy is on when they're ready to do work.
Right.
So that's my thing is, as trainers, we need to teach them realistic stuff and watch what you're getting at your academies.
Yeah.
I guess to go along with that, because I am an administrator and I do get to set policy. I think a lot of what you may be seeing may be coming from the political control of the agencies and not necessarily the officers themselves. Fortunately,
I didn't mean it to.
No.
That's exactly what I was kind of alluding to. I guess I should have made that more clear.
And I guess that's a lot of the difference between a police department and a sheriff's office.
Right.
In a police department, you have a mayor and a city council or a county commission that is hiring a chief, and the chief serves at their pleasure. And if the mayor or the city council is upset about something, they get in the chief's ear, and that becomes policy. With an elected sheriff, the sheriff is the decision maker. I know from, I'm number 2 in the agency. I know where every decision is made in this organization, and it's not by city councilmen or county commissioners getting in the sheriff's ear or, anything of that. It's the sheriff making the decisions. And there's just a different political animal there. I worked for 2 excellent police chiefs before I came to the sheriff's office, and just a vast difference in the political reality of the agency. And Jared, I know your sheriff's had some very good statements along those lines too, if you'd like to reiterate on that.
Yeah, no, he backs everything. I mean, he's a great, not only he's a sheriff, but he's a leader, and I'm happy to work for him. Like, I go to work every day, glad that I got a sheriff like that. It just sucks for me to watch some of these agencies and how people aren't working anymore, and they're not doing it because they're scared to do their job because they're going to lose their job. Man, that's not them. That's not the officer. They're there, they're dying inside because they became a policeman to help, but they know they can't do anything. So they almost settle with that. And that's how they become, because it becomes a job then. And this isn't a job. This isn't this is a calling for those that really want to do work.
Jared's unique in that, he's had, I think he said 4 shootings that you've been involved in directly. The modern current trend in law enforcement, four shootings and you're going to be stuck in an evidence room or in a desk job somewhere where you will not come in contact with the public anymore. The fact that his sheriff is still sending him back out there, I think, is a testament to that organization.
Mm-hmm.
Jared, I have a question that came in from John Hearn. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with John, but he wanted me to ask you this about how relevant are the current shooting standards in law enforcement? Where should they be? And what do you think is a good enough standard? And I guess kind of to broaden that out for the audience, after you talk about what the law enforcement standards is, how would that also apply to private citizens?
it's not where it should be. But it's hard for me to say that because I come from an agency who's well funded, well trained, and I don't want to look at some of these other agencies that just don't have the resources to kind of train to a state standard or national standard. But some of their stuff will get them through a officer involved shooting, and that's kind of what they work for. If you have one officer involved shooting in 5-10 years, there's all that risk management and what you want to spend your money on. They get away from the shooting. And I'll get contacted a lot, hey, we got into a shooting last week and this happened. It was kind of crazy or whatever. We'd like to bring you in and kind of do some stuff. And I was like, well, you should have done this before. Always stay proactive in your training and your mindset. I don't think law enforcement's where it should be. I can't say a specific standard where it should be, but I think in the state of Florida, some of our quals are, hey, those are way too fast. Those are dumb. You're doing a lot of dumb things when you're not concentrating on other things, and you're not. They are. I always find if you go to the least common denominator, then people don't come up. But if you raise the standards, people do come up to the standard. They will, but even the least common denominator will raise to that standard, but they would raise higher if you just raise the standard, because everybody will come meet that standard. If that answers it.
Cool.
So on that note, Jared, what classes does Reston Group offer, and do you have a flagship course, so to speak, that you feel is the one that makes the most difference in the capability of the team or client that you're working with?
So Reston Group, we offer everything law enforcement related, firearms, CQB, up to hostage rescue, up to private security details. But I'd say the key, we have a performance gunfighting Mod 1, which concentrates on both pistol and rifle. And a lot of the concept and theories that we push through is a great course for everyone. For SWAT teams and things like that, our CQB courses, I believe, are top notch in the country and are trained by guys who actually have done CQB last week and seen things and guys that we've changed. I've been on the team for now 16 years, that we've changed what we've done and hey, I used to do this, that have good knowledge of why we did this and why we changed to this and things like that. So our CQB classes for teams are amazing, but just our push on hits matter and things like that in our shooting courses, I think that makes us one of the top-notch training companies out there.
And when it relates to what you teach in your classes, how do you guys, especially for us civilians, when you go in as the SWAT team and you have an incident or an action, you guys write that up and discuss it, and then how fast does something that you see that you really need to change, how fast does that go from an experience to something that you're now teaching in your class or revamping the?
With us, pretty quick, because it's only a few of us on the training side, and I'm not the lead trainer on all our stuff on the SWAT team. So there's other guys that the team might take a little longer because we got to discuss it. But for us, it's me and a couple guys. We talk to each other and be hey, we could have probably done this better. Then that changes in the training side company if we feel it's, and then we'll train it and figure out whether it was good or not. And but after an incident that goes bad, people tend to try to change things to make it right. And you can't, sometimes in CQB, it's just a bad scenario. And you know, we're in a dangerous job and people lose their lives, people get hit, but changing anything won't help it. And sometimes that's kind of a coping mechanism for some people that, well, we should change this or we should do this, when in fact, no, that just, we got caught. Like, I mean, there's always times you're, you know, going to be able to get caught, and you got caught. That's it.
Gotcha. You know, I've seen this before and heard people talk, you know, especially if you hear people talk, you know, especially guys that train a lot. I kind of feel like guys that, you know, do take a lot of, you know, are pretty prepared for things and, you know, try to you know, practice all this stuff. I almost feel like sometimes people get a false sense of security that, you know, because they take a couple classes a year and they practice and all this, that, you know, the criminal that you're gonna come up against is some doofus, you know, guy that doesn't know anything, and you know he just decided to pick the wrong guy to whatever. How false is that? How trained and experienced are the type of people that people are coming into contact when they have that bad day? Civilians mainly, not so much you guys, but civilians. I mean.
So what I see from criminals, they're not trained, but they got a lot of experience. Jacksonville's a very violent city.
Mm-hmm.
We have like the highest murder rate in Florida per capita and things like that. We are very violent. So for someone even to, like, you know, hit you up or they're robbing you, guns don't scare people. Don't ever think you can scare somebody by showing a gun. By probably 14 or 15, their friends have been shot. They've possibly been shot. They've seen it. They've
Mm-hmm.
lived it. It's not a big deal to them. So don't think you'll ever intimidate any of them. But are they trained? No. So you have to use your training and even your mouth to be able to talk to folks and be able to kind of try to diffuse the situation or confuse the situation, to be able to use your training when it's time to go. And then I think most people are super trained, but you can never be, I mean, how can you be, you know, trained enough for something that can take your life?
Right.
And if you enjoy it, please do it. I mean, I love this stuff. I mean, that's why I like doing it. That's why I like talking on these shows, because I like to hear other people's things, and I like to have the tactical discussions about things. Because I'm not one of those guys that's like, hey man, you just do that because that's how you do it. Like, I'm not,
Right.
And that's just not who I am. And I like to have these discussions and be like, yeah, that makes sense. That's a good, you know, I'm always open. If you probably took a Reston group class in 2009, it's probably not what we're teaching in 2018.
Right.
On some things. Because I mean, that I'm not, you know, doctrine stuck to something. If I feel like that is good information, I'm going to put that out there.
Right.
So on that note about sort of evolution and progression yourself as a shooter, you know, kind of there's a big conversation that never seems to go away, even though it's been sort of like asked and answered a bunch of times. But competition versus work shooting as a primarily work shooter. I mean, do you compete? Do you use it to get better at work? I mean, if you do, kind of like how and where do you draw the line to prevent developing any bad habits, but still getting, you know, benefits from competition if you think that there are?
Yes, I think I do compete. I think there's great benefits in competition. I like just the camaraderie around hanging out with dudes that like guns like me, and you know, and I enjoy hanging out there. I have caught myself going down the competition rabbit hole because I want to win. So then I'll start modifying kind of duty guns to mimic a competition gun with comps, and you know what I mean? Like that, kind of get into that realm. And it's like, so yes, I have caught myself because I want to win, but I need to draw myself back to being and working with duty weapons, doing duty stuff, duty equipment, and things like that. Because, like, once you win a couple matches and things like that, and I'm competing against some like 3-gun guys that are really good, but my thing is I just got to beat this guy. Well, I'll start going to maybe like a Kydex holster, nothing, like no retention on my pistol, and you know what I mean, and just start going. And then I'm like, hey man, stop this. This isn't what I do, and push back. But it definitely helps, man. The competition is great because it puts a stressor on you. Not everybody can do force on force all the time. So if you don't even have an avenue really to do force on force to raise that stress level, competition is the only thing you got. So getting out there and writing that, I mean, some people are like, well, I like IDPA because it's tactical, and I like this because it's tactical or whatever. Listen, even in USPSA where they're going out, they're walking and they're doing things, I've seen numerous times a buzzer go off and somebody do a walk and they got this whole thing walked through perfectly, buzzer goes off and they lose their freaking mind. You know what I mean? And it's about staying under control and shooting your plan when it goes and not doing what getting your hits under stress, getting your hits under time, and doing things like that. So competition is great that way. I just try not to gear my equipment that way. But I'm going to try to go as fast, but almost go down zero as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Got it. And also kind of following on that in terms of your evolution as a shooter, as a SWAT cop, as a gunfighter, who's been your biggest mentor? Like, who has helped either shape you or, from a part, when you really kind of sunk your teeth into it, who kind of showed you the light, and who do you kind of like, revert back to or bounce ideas off or anything like that?
So my first guy that I could really think of is Paul Howe. Paul Howe's been a guy that's come out and trained our team since the early 90s or late 90s. And me and him hit it off. And it wasn't really like him in class. He took a liking to me, and we would hang out, we would do things, and just kind of hanging out with him and talking to what his thing is. Like, Paul is a great person who I could emulate my career after. Lately, it's been Tom Spooner. Tom Spooner, since I've been on the team 16 years, I'll be fading out soon. And how we've talked, and like I can talk to him now about transitioning from an old warrior, from a young warrior to a kind of not a has-been, but just someone who can't do it anymore and has to pass that knowledge on to he has really just kind of shaped my way for that. He's helping me prepare myself for when I'm not that action guy to doing the next thing. And that's hard for a lot of us to do. And, on when is it time to do it and those things. So those two right now have been the most influential in my life. And if I need to talk to somebody, I call them and talk to them, and they always give me good advice.
Cool. We got a question in the chat. Matthew Dropko. He says, I'm sure Jared will bring up PT and its importance of how it makes you harder to kill, but maybe some suggestions for the average CC radio listener and what they can do to get started. It's folks like Jared and Blowers that inspired him to push harder than his normal 5K distance. He did that August 7th, ran 6, and then this past Sunday he ran a half marathon for Nationwide Children's Hospital. So if he can do that, we all can do something to get healthier and stronger. And Matthew, I watched your progress working towards that. It was pretty cool, man.
Man, and that's awesome. I don't want to say, hey, you need to do this, you need to lift like this, or you need to do this. You need to do something. Make yourself better every day. Go in and just because you carry a gun, doesn't mean that, you can win in a fight, because not all physical violence goes to deadly force. You know what I mean? You have to be able to do what you have to do. You have to be able to run. You have to be able to do a lot of things. So pushing yourself to be harder to kill and just having that mindset of, hey, man, I'm going to be hard to kill will do way more for you than anything. I don't want you to go to the gym and just kind of lift some things or whatever. Like, I want you to be sweaty. I want you to push yourself. Not every day, because I don't want to, like, I'm not a huge CrossFit guy, like, because I think that kind of beats your body up young, and like, because I'm in a longevity side of things. But there are some things to CrossFit that work out great, and some things you kind of need to ignore, but you have a combination of everything, which makes you push. And you probably once a year, you need to do something. Like that half marathon for him was a goal. Now he needs to do a half marathon next year too. Do not let that go. Don't let all your hard work go. Don't make excuses. Oh, well, I used to do that. I can do it. Like, you ask my friends, like, hey man, you want to go do what we, like, whatever we did, 4 years ago, Roger that. Let's go. Am I going to be the best at doing it? Maybe not, because maybe I've changed my workouts to that, and I've gotten older, but I'm still like, hey man, let's go do it. And I'm going to do it. I'm going to finish. So always finish your goals. It doesn't matter how well you do, because you're only competing against yourself at that point. I mean, unless you're, someone who's going to win some money in a 5K, then don't worry about, or in a half marathon, don't worry about any of that. You worry about beating you last year. And once it becomes I've gotten older, I can't beat my old times. Like, sometimes PRs just aren't happening anymore. But just doing it makes you better, I think.
Mm-hmm. So, when we get back to your training, is the 1-day concealed carry deployment, is that like a civilian class, kind of based for civilians, and what's kind of the rundown on that class?
Well, no, the course is developed from undercover officers working in covert assignments. So it's more of that. It's more of fighting from concealment, not a this is a gun. This is like, you should already have your concealed weapons permit before you come to this class. This is actually like fighting from concealment, drawing from concealment. I think we average over 150 draws from concealment in that course. Nice. Which is just a lot in one day. Like, you know what I mean? Of pushing things and getting things right. So it's built off fighting from concealment, because a lot of times people think like, well, a SWAT team, like, I'm always jocked up and doing, SWAT-y stuff. But a lot of my job is, I'm not undercover, but I'm covert a lot. Like, that's why I got the beard and things like that. That's why I'm allowed to have these things, because we want to look non-coppish and go in and do things.
Cool. Lee?
Yeah, Jared, earlier you mentioned that hits matter. Could you elaborate on what you consider to be a hit? What's your standard, like, I don't know if you can put it in size of target or target area, and what kind of time frame a shooter should be able to get those hits for it to matter?
So a hit for us is like an A-zone target on an IPSC or something like that. And the reason why we hold that standard of an A-zone is because it's about 6 inches across the top, 10 inches down. As a target or a person typically doesn't face you and let you just shoot it in the sternum. It'll move. Meat moves when you shoot it. So no matter what it's showing you, if he's showing you his side or showing you this or showing you that, if I can hit in that 6-yard span of an A-zone, I can get hits in any position that he's showing me. And I want those hits because that's what matters. Appendages, that doesn't matter. Like I said earlier, getting shot doesn't hurt too much. You can fight through it it hurts 10, 15 seconds later, but the pain right then it doesn't hurt. So you got to get on those targets. Time wise, it just depends on yardage. Depends on what's happening. Like, to me, I don't ever want to say you could be slow, but you have to get your hits, because that's what's going to get you on point. And I'm not saying that you're going to look at your sights and you're going to hit those targets. Like, if I'm walking up to a car and as I get to the window, a dude produces a pistol and starts giving it to me right there, I'm going to probably put some rounds into the door and but when it's time that he gets out and we are now in a gunfight, that's when it matters. So, all right, hey, things have changed. Calm down. Get your hits. Get your hits. Get your hits.
So from there, just doubling back real quick, you mentioned having goals and stuff. What are your current goals for you besides getting that clipped wing back in action? Getting off your stories. What do you have sort of set for yourself, coming back from this injury in terms of whether it's rehab, whether it's physical, whether it's shooting, because we all have to find something that's our next goal, our next thing to conquer.
Right. So for me, it's 18 years on the SWAT team, and that's what I want. So when I come back, I'll have about 2 years left. There's not a lot of us old guys on the SWAT team. I got to compete against 25-year-old ninjas, being 6'3", 240. I've been competing my whole SWAT career to maintain with these guys. And that's the thing, is this is not going to change me. I got to get back to where I was and what I was doing quickly and just hang with the fellas. Like, I don't want to be ever a drag on them.
Yeah. I have a question from Tiffany Johnson. So everybody sit up and pay attention, because Tiffany wants to know this. And I need a ruling, Alan. Since this question does come from Tiffany, does this count in
bingo
Time Podcast bingo?
It definitely does.
Okay. All right. We need a clarification on that before. Jared, Tiffany is asking about the definition of a bad cop from a cop's perspective. Citizens have this perception in their mind of what is a bad cop, but what do cops think makes our fellow coworkers bad cops versus good cops?
All right. So bad cop to me is not a crook.
Exactly.
Anyone who commits crimes, they're criminals. Like, I don't care what their job is or they are criminals. And to me, they're worse. A criminal policeman is way worse than anything. So that's not a bad cop. A bad cop to me is, we've had them, they just they have poor social skills or whatever it is. They can't talk to somebody, and sometimes they spin things up that shouldn't have been spun up. And he's just not good at his job. Sometimes it might not be that he's bad at his job and he's aggressive. It's just sometimes they don't know how to write reports, or they don't know how to write tickets. They don't know how to handle their beat. And everybody has them in every job that they've ever been in. There's always bad employees. They're not good or bad. They're just not. There's some that are not up to standard, and then there's some that you just would rather, when they get dispatched with you to a call, you're like, yeah, I'd rather handle it by myself. Like, I'll take those chances, because that person will spin it up into something that shouldn't even be there. And that to me is a bad cop. So the criminal side of that's just criminal. And we deal with those. I think we deal with them in Jacksonville, especially. We deal with them pretty well.
Yeah, that kind of mirrors my own thinking. I'm coming up on 20 years total, 10 years as chief deputy, and I can tell, listening to the radio of my guys out at work, when a deputy gets dispatched to a call and I hear other deputies, they look on the MDT and they see that they're closer, and they, hey man, I'm closer. I'll handle this call for you. They respect the guy they're working with because
Yes.
they know that guy will jump a call for them if it's needed to be. If I don't hear anybody ever, like say there's a particular deputy that nobody ever volunteers to take a call away from him, that guy's not pulling his weight. And that's typically a guy that I see not last long in the profession. I had a talk with, I was teaching this week, as I mentioned earlier, a state mandated training class on community oriented policing. And I pointed out to the guys that I don't care how many tickets they write. I don't even care if they write a ticket. I will refute a myth here. Sheriff's office gets absolutely zero funding from any citation we write. I don't care if my guys ever write a ticket whatsoever. I don't even know where we keep the ticket books. But I do think there's a huge problem with a deputy that never makes traffic stops, because that tells me you're riding around for a 12-hour shift in a marked unit and you're never seeing a violation. Either you're incompetent or you're ducking work.
Right.
And to me, that's my kind of definition of you're not earning your paycheck. Because if you turn on the lights on people running red lights on other traffic violations, you're going to find people with warrants. You're going to find people that need to be going to jail. And to me, if you're not doing that, that's the only reason you're ducking traffic stops, is that you don't want to deal with that. Does that kind of go along with what you're saying?
Oh yeah, without a doubt. I mean, for me, I haven't written even when I worked patrol, I didn't write tickets unless I was putting you in jail. Like, I'm the guy that, like, hey, I see a violation, I'm going to pull you over, but I'm looking for criminals. I'm not looking for speeding or whatever it is, and you're out of there unless you're going to jail, and then you'll get some citations from me. But that's it. Like, and that's just kind of. And I've always surrounded myself with those type of workers. Like, I just want to be around workers. It makes your day, it makes your shift go by quicker. It makes everything go by. So that's to me is like a bad place. I hope that answered. I hope she can tell you whether that answered her question or not.
I'll let you know shortly. Alan?
Right.
So back to kind of like the civilian bent. Is there stuff that you see guys carrying around as EDC gear or something that's kind of pointless? And on this other side, is there stuff that people aren't carrying that you think everybody should have on them, coming from your background?
Man, so I get in this kind of, not an argument or whatever, but I get in this discussion. And I'm on social media and I look at everybody's like, oh, here's my pocket dump.
Mm-hmm.
And they got all this stuff. And I'm here to tell you, I was like, that's bullshit. Like, you may have carried that today for your post, but you don't carry that every day. For me, I carry a Glock 19 with a +2, and then I carry an extra magazine. You know, I would like to have a flashlight on me, but that's kind of it. And I always have a blade on me. But that's like, those are the essentials for me. Like, now we're getting into tourniquets and things like that, and people should have these things. I think you should have something in your car, and I'm totally for, when I'm working and doing a mission, there's my med kit's hanging on me, and there's certain things. But at some point, you just kind of got to give it a rest. And what will you do every day for the rest of your life? If you make it too consuming, you'll just stop doing it. So I like to keep like a maintained gun, knife, light, you know what I mean, and a wallet.
Right.
And that's kind of how I like to think about it.
Yeah, I own a construction company, and I work a lot also, and there is certain things like now at work, I with different things, I do keep a tourniquet with me, and I've got kits in my trucks and stuff like that, but there's a potential every day of somebody cutting their hand off or smashing it off or whatever. But I always wondered about how much people move around. It took me a long time to get I carry a full size 17 now. I used to carry a 19. It took a long time to get the stuff, Spencer keepers, to be able to carry comfortably, moving and working the way I do.
Right.
And to carry that extra stuff, the gun, a mag, and a knife. Of course, my knife is almost a tool also every day, but I do. I see a lot of stuff that I sometimes I see those pocket dumps. I'm like, how?
Well,
You
because they
know?
don't, and that's the truth. They just don't do it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's. I'll tell you right now. At work, I carry an extra mag. If I just go off duty, typically it's a 19,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm just going to the store. I mean, I got 19 rounds. Hopefully, I can fix it in that. You know what I mean?
Right.
If I carry a 43 or something like that, then I'm gonna have an extra mag. But I carry the bigger gun, so my extra mag's in my gun. Like, you know, that's why it is. And I just think some people get too carried away that they don't carry it. I mean, I think that tourniquets are awesome, and if you can carry it and you do it, great. But don't make it a chore to carry these things. Just have them available to you.
Right. Well, this spawned a question in the chat. Dale Borchard just wanted to know what you recommend for a civilian for EDC, and he said you do hear a lot of different info on the subject. Expand on the pocket dump, please.
So pocket dumps are like, there are pictures on the internet where people pull out like what they had on their waistband, and they'll have 3 flashlights, allegedly, a full-size Glock 34 with a light on it, and like, you know, 4 mags, and that's what a pocket, like they just take these. It's just a social media thing that people put out there, and that's a pocket dump of what the guys were carrying on them that day. And I just don't think that that's really true, that they carry that. I mean, they might carry it that day or whatever, and I might load up and do certain things like that. The Unity Tactical Clutch Belt, I'll rock that thing with rifle mags, and, you know, when I'm doing a covert mission where I have to stay low key and things like that. And I have like Body Armor and Velocity Systems come out with this awesome thing with earth magnets that'll stick to your chest. I mean, and I got those things for when I'm working in shady spots or where it might possibly go big. But if you see Jared Reston out of the house, I got a Glock 19 on me. Like, you can count that as a guarantee. There's a Glock 19 on me.
Gotcha. Guys?
Well, I've heard back from Tiffany, and that did answer her question as far as the definition of a bad cop, but she has a follow-up.
Okay.
And it's, what if the bad cop, by that definition, realizes that they are the cop that all the others feel that way about? What should they do on their own? And then what should all the other good cops do to help rectify the situation?
So if they're that bad cop, Tiffany, they're not gonna recognize that they're that guy. They're gonna give excuses of why they're that guy, or these guys hate me, they're all against me, or this. They have a poor attitude in life, and that's just how it's gonna be. They're gonna make excuses for them. And as good cops, at some point you can try and bring them up and be like, hey man, this is your reputation, this is that. But at some point you just cut them off, and then it's up to the agency to get rid of them. At some point you can't ruin your career trying to worry about somebody else who doesn't care about theirs. You just gotta, at some point, just cut them loose. Let them be them. You be you.
Yeah, I can say that coming up through the ranks, I handled a couple of those situations badly by being confrontational, and basically it ended up lifelong. I can never have a decent personal relationship with the individual again, just because I just handled the situation so poorly. From an agency head standpoint, I can say that a lot of times the guy that won't work and won't do anything is harder to get rid of than the guy that screws up stuff.
Yeah.
Because they never create a situation that that does anything that you can deal with. You know, if they've never done anything, how are they going to do anything wrong?
Right.
Yeah, and I personally, if a guy's heart's in the right place and he's out there working and he fumbles trying to get an extra yard, I'm not too upset about that. I can deal with that all day. But when the guy that never does anything finally gets somehow trapped into having to work and then he screws it up, that's when I come lowering the boom. If you can't even the few times you're going to do something be competent, then we've got a problem.
Yeah. And that's just kind of how it is. It weeds itself out. And a lot of those people, they might make a career out of it, but that's government work. I mean, that's just how it is. Like it infuriates me. Incompetence really drives me nuts. But at some point, you got to just be like, hey, man, I can't do anything about it. I can't. I mean, you're second in command. You can do something about it. But this guy, I can talk to you as a peer and help bring you up. But at that point, or I can talk to my supervisors and be like, hey, this guy's jacked up. But that's it. And I rarely see it. So I'm in a very unique position. So since 2004, I've been on a full-time SWAT team in an office working with SWAT guys. So I can't talk too much on that. I can talk about my limited experience out there. And we do on the SWAT team have some less workers than we would like, but they don't stay very much because the culture itself is you're going to work and you better be right.
On that note, I'd actually like to ask you how you go about, I come in contact with a lot of SWAT teams of varying degrees of excellence. How do you guys, or how did you set that culture of excellence, and how do you maintain it? So from, I see a lot of guys that'll come to me from teams and they'll say, oh man, I'd love to do that. But my team won't because of X, or man, we'd really like to push it further, but the older guys on the team don't want to push it to the next level or whatever. How did you guys created and maintained that sort of culture?
I think the older guys, when we got set as a team, kind of started the foundation. And one of my mentors on the team, Jim Walters, he kind of started changing some things in like the firearms and tactics side of actually reaching out. And Mike Hyde, my training partner, they started reaching out to everybody else. What keeps that culture for us is we do not think that we're the best. We constantly bring trainers in and things like that once a year to train us. I don't want that ancestral, we're the best. This is what we do. And this is, so we try to bring in other people. And then when we send our folks out, like there is an understanding when you go to that course, you better be the best. Like we want to shine. And that's just kind of how we just keep the culture going. And I wouldn't want to be the one to let down the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office SWAT team.
Wow. So, how do you feel about stuff like pepper spray, OC spray, as it pertains to civilian? And is that a viable option? And is the training with it advisable? And how would you go about that?
Yes, it is there are so many scenarios that you can get your way out of that if you learn the proper use of force and like what you can do during certain things, not as a cop, but as a civilian, like just trying to disengage from this and they chase and they're following you, pepper spray, it works. It doesn't work 100% of the time. No, you need to know your next level. But to me, not everything's a shoot or a stab. There's a lot of things in between. That's what keeps you safe. And that's what, not everybody needs to be shot. Not everybody needs to be, it's just, but you do need to help yourself. And pepper spray, I think is a great tool for civilians, is a great tool for what my wife carry. Like that's something that they need to have, because there's a level there that, and it's not a high level that you can use pepper spray.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And to me, it can diffuse things. It can get things right if properly used.
Are the, I don't know what you would call the civilian, kind of, is it the stun gun taser thing? Is that a civilian thing, or those things just, I mean, we used to play with them when I was a teenager, about 18 years old. That was a drinking game,
Yeah, I think the stun gun's probably not worth it. That's just a piss off factor.
Mm-hmm.
Taser has a civilian version that they have. It's very expensive, but they replace it if you use it, and you get and like I said earlier, my tasers failed on me, so I don't have a lot of confidence in it.
Right.
But it is a tool. And if you have the money to do it, and a lot of people just need to think about their willingness. Right. Some people are a lot willing to spray someone with pepper spray or tase somebody rather than shoot them with a gun. So what are you willing to do? Because sometimes the time matters. Right. I'm willing to do this now, then do it. Like, you can't wait until someone's on you beating your head in before you pull your gun. Like there has to be certain levels there that you need to be capable of, or you're just kind of you're fooling yourself.
Right. Well, it's kind of, you mentioned that. Barack and I were just talking the other day. I've been to a lot of training classes. Love doing it, not only to be prepared, but that's like kind of a hobby. You know what I mean? Also, right. Like it's what I like to do. But and you're always practicing, your draw speed and your time and things. And then we were just talking about the other day. I mean, I was getting ready, I almost said maybe not as much to police officers, but now maybe even more so to police officers. But that decision time that you have to make that decision, especially if you've never been in any situation like that, is like, do I pull my gun out now? Is this really is this when you shoot somebody? Am I going to get in trouble? How do you prepare for that? How do you train for that, especially as a civilian? And is there even more going through? I mean, you've seen quite a bit of change. I think you said 2001 was when you started with the. I mean, does that decision time take longer for you guys now in 2018 than it did in 2001?
I don't think so. It doesn't for me.
Mm-hmm.
But that's through training. And once you get to a point of to me, shooting people is very easy. The actual act of shooting, once you go to doing it, it's easy on the soul. It's easy because they've scared you. There is a point. But deciding to shoot somebody is the hardest thing you'll ever do. On when you're going to pull, that's why you train the speed on the draw. Because to me, I don't ever want to say, "Hey, I'm going to shoot somebody," or "I'm doing this," and then draw, then decide to shoot. Like it's from the draw. Like when this gun comes out and it levels out, and I got my sights, it's eaten. So once you've done that, you need to move into the force on force and scenario training. Because that's where you'll see and getting things, and then start researching your state laws on like use of deadly force and when you can do it and those things, and not just kind of browse through it. Read those things, because when you know what you're doing is righteous, you'll go and you'll do it. You'll hit harder, you'll draw faster, the decisions come quicker. When you just do a shooting course and you do this and you do that, you know how to shoot, but then you need to start researching when to shoot.
Yeah, I'd like to comment on the Alan's question about decision time. Bill Lewinsky of the Force Science Institute has a quote that has stuck with me about the expert has an automatic use of the tool. And that's training to a standard in which you use the weapon automatically. You don't have to think about how to draw the pistol. When it comes time to draw the pistol, you can do it without devoting brain power to it. You know, cops carrying level 3 holsters. When you're having to think about how you disengage the security devices on your holster, you're not devoting brain power to the problem. For a private citizen, if you're carrying concealed and you're having to think about how you clear your concealment garment and get your strong hand shooting grip on the pistol to draw it, you are not processing the problem, you are processing the skill. So you need to train to the level where that's something you can do without having to devote conscious thought to the skill, so that you can concentrate all your brain power on the decision. And I think with the confidence of that training and training to that skill level, you're going to make better decisions. I wrote down a quote that Jared said earlier in the show, you know, be fast, but don't be in a hurry.
Mm-hmm.
That's my nugget from this show so far.
Yeah, I like that one.
Be fast, but don't be in a hurry. And that's the reason to stay out training in classes on a frequent basis, and then going out and practicing what you learn in those classes, so that your skill set stays at a point where you're not having to think about the skills, but so you can think about what the problem that's in front of you. And, you know, Jared mentioned the force-on-force training. There's a concept out there called recognition prime decision making, and John Murphy is one of the big leaders of that in the training circuit, of getting out and seeing scenarios. Because what do they do in football? They watch game film.
Mm-hmm.
What do the best hitters in baseball do? They watch films of the pitcher pitching to them, pitching the ball, so they can see how his hand releases the ball, so they can start recognizing what the pitch is going to be. If his hand comes around in one position, it's likely a fastball versus a curveball. And it's all to recognize what's coming towards them. And, you know, the force-on-force and training helps develop that. Jared, do you have any thoughts on that?
No, I mean, without a doubt. And that's the thing is, even doing a couple scenarios, when you see that play out in real life, it just happens. And you're just kind of like, all right, like this is what, because your brain recognizes things. It's going to build the pathways. And that's what you want to do in real life. And you want to be exposed to that stuff, not just be the best shooter. And some people don't like to go to force-on-force classes as civilians, because they're going to get hit with force-on-force rounds. They're going to do this. Sometimes people like it, and some people take it way too out of control. You got to keep it in a good, controlled environment. And sometimes, and decision making can come on a flat range too. It doesn't even have to be force-on-force. You can do shoot, no shoot targets. So something that adds a different thinking process to that, rather than just drawing the gun and shooting on an up call. You know, figuring it out, calling color. There's a lot of different, not tricks, but drills to do to get you thinking and get you looking at things and then deciding to shoot. Shooting should always be a decision. And that's why I always talk about my cadence of always slowing it down to nothing faster than 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which is like, 0.3 second cadences, because you can, every shot you can see and react to what's happening. You can move the gun. Is he still a threat? What's he doing? What's going on? You have that time for your brain to process and what you're doing. And then that will put them down plenty fast enough.
Yeah, I kind of stole my next question, because I was going to ask you what you see as being like the biggest, kind of like whatever trend right now in sort of the shooting industry is least beneficial, to the actual solving of the problem. And you put that video out with Surefire not too long ago. And I remember people seeing, all these competition shooters just going, well, you can totally go faster and you can totally this. And, I was just sitting there kind of like, well, yeah, you can, when it's cardboard, but it's not like you haven't been sitting outside the target for 6 hours in the rain, hungry, it's dark now. And when you breach on the emergency assault, it's because he slit the throat of a 6-year-old boy that looks like your son. And now you got to square up and put a round past a little girl's head. and put that guy down. And it's like, that 0.08 for your next shot doesn't matter if that first one was good, if it found its mark. Are you ready and prepared to shoot? Because like you said, meat moves when you shoot it. Are you prepared to move and follow on and prosecute that target till it's over? And yeah, I mean, like you said, you kind of already answered that question. So,
but I'll add to that, Alex. So I shoot 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, let's say 5 rounds on a target paper right in front of me. And then I'll put 5 targets out across in a quick array and, stagger them. And then say, all right, shoot that target at the same cadence of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Because that's what meat is. So you're slowing down your shot-to-shot times to actually speed up your target-to-target times of staying in that 1, 2, 3. And then people are like, oh, I can see what you mean. Because the thing is, if you train to burn it down, when it's go time, you're going to burn it down. There's not a shooting on the move cadence. There's not anything like that. You're going to do what you've been training to do. So slowing down, getting your hits, recognizing what time it is, and doing things, that's super freaking important. I've seen targets on turning targets, and I've seen it on the internet where people just like to lay waste, and then the target will turn, and then you'll see dirt pop in the back. Well, that dirt popping is a drywall that it's going through, and I got buddies in the next room. That is unsat. That's the world I live in. And I'm telling you, the world I live in and the people I've trained, my team as shooters, since I became trainer, we've implemented this. And it's not that no one's ever lived, but we've killed people quick. We don't miss. We hit what we're aiming at. We're under control. We don't hit things that we're not supposed to hit. And that's what it's about. Like, to me, it's not about the robber that comes up and I blaze on him. No, that's easy peasy. I'm talking about the guy that was maybe robbing somebody, now is running, and now I'm shooting a moving target. And I'm not going to blaze away and hope one round hits them, because those rounds are going somewhere. That's what the untrained person does. That's when someone who has not been experienced to actually fighting with guns and seeing these things happen, and not being experienced like through force on force and seeing what this stuff happens. Because typically in force on force, dudes will do about the same thing if they're getting shot at, and how they move and what they're doing. And I was never able to discriminate what shot I was going to take kind of that fast. If it was a hostage rescue shot, sometimes I shot fast, and I might send it past them and it hits the wall and nobody knows because the walls are all painted up, but I knew it. And I was like, man, this has got to change in the way that I'm training myself and the way I'm training the fellas, because we have to move fast and shoot smooth. And everything we do is thought and executed because we say it's a go.
I guess we'll all get one more question before we get to rapid fire. I've heard people before say, in a stressful situation, you're not going to see your sights. You're not going to do this. You're not going to do that. Just proper training and just repetitive training, that just negates all that, right?
Yes.
What has been your experience?
You're going to see what you train to see. I've seen my sights in all 4 of my shootings, whether it was a red dot or pistol sights. I've seen them. I've seen them every single training. Typically, people who say that are guys who aren't trained, and they think that going to the basic law enforcement academy is training, and then they just don't do anything for 10 years, and then they do something, and then they luck out and hit somebody, and they fall, and then they're like, yeah, I'm a gunfighter, I'm whatever. No, that's you luck. And I'm not ever counting on luck to take my life. You just got to look at our hit ratio as law enforcement officers. It's like 22%. That is crazy.
Yeah.
Like, that is absolutely crazy. But that's what it is, and that's kind of where we're. Do I wish that we would get more training and more ammunition and things like that? Yes, I wish we would. I think police would do it if we made them do it, but we gotta, push them to do it because it's just not going to happen. So people who say that, they're just fooling themselves.
Right. Is it when it comes to the quality of a given department? Is it pretty much you can look across the board and it's basically funding based? I mean, is that what drives most of that?
I would say no.
No.
You have to have the funding, but you have to have the quality instructors out there that people would like to emulate, and the people that would like, what I mean, when you're at the academy, like, yeah, that's who I want to be. And then as a chief of police and things like that, if you have people that nobody wants to emulate their career after and things like that,
right,
then that's not worth it. It's not all funding based. Funding helps it,
right,
but I know a lot of really unfunded departments have a great reputation and because they just make it happen. Like, they might not be funded for it, but they find a way to get their guys some training.
right.
And that's what the key is just pushing the training, pushing standards and things like that. But no, like, funding is not, there's a lot of well-funded teams that aren't that great.
Before I hand it to the next one, you kind of made me think of a question that I wanted to ask. When it came to your evolution as an instructor, was the teaching part hard to come by, and did you have some people that kind of that helped you, or maybe you emulated, not as from the instructor teacher standpoint, from teaching adults?
Yes. When I first started, I had a lot of the yelling and a lot of the cussing at people and doing things like that. And it shut some people down. So it takes a lot. I mean, it took a while for me to become a good instructor and more of a coach. Mm-hmm. And it changed the way I coach my kids at football and the way I do things and the way I just present information. So, yeah, I mean, you're not – just because you can shoot or you can do this doesn't make you a good instructor. It's how you relate to everybody and relay that information.
All right. Cool.
So, speaking of relaying information and finding a way, you get that argument a lot from guys that say, well, my department won't pay for it, right? Or, well, I can't afford it, or, this, that, the other, whatever the case may be. How have, you always found a way to maintain it? I know, from my background, we were given nothing and expected to find a way. It was just kind of the culture and the way it was. And so from, a very young age, that was just like, oh yeah, well, I always have to buy my own stuff. That is what it is. Or I'm stuck with garbage. What do you have to say to guys that kind of use that excuse or have that issue with it, and how do you circumvent it?
Man, you got to tell people to invest in themselves. And this is what I always tell, like, a lot of cops, that, listen, if you get killed in the line of duty, the nation mourns. Every police officer mourns. Your agency mourns. But the next week, you're going to be a plaque on a board because that agency has to keep on rolling. That ball has to keep going. There's still going to be criminals. You don't get a timeout. That has to go. But what will disintegrate is your family and your home life and your friends. You do this stuff for them. Like, you don't do it for you. To me, my only fear of dying is my boys not having a dad. Not me dying. I could give a shit. I could care less about me dying. It's what I've done to them. So I make myself hard to kill for everybody I love. And if it takes paying for your own classes, you pay for your own classes. If it takes buying a new piece of gear because it's better and you find it, then you buy it. Don't have junk because a department, it's a government agency. The government's not known for the best stuff. There's stuff out there when you see it, be like, yeah, that can help me. Then I'm not saying buy everything. I mean, I have a room full of, I could probably have like a third world army outfitted with a room of stuff I bought that just doesn't work out and I can do it. But I'm always trying something new if that makes me better, if it doesn't, because I want to be harder to kill for the ones I love. So to me, invest in yourself.
There's a few resources that people can that police can go to maybe out there that maybe discuss this sort of thing. Forums, other podcasts that kind of go through this to where that each officer doesn't have to go through the trials and find each thing, which one's a piece of junk. Don't you have some places where you all discuss that sort of thing?
Not really.
No?
No. I mean, right here on this.
Uh-huh.
But like I told you earlier, a lot of police aren't gun people. They don't watch these things. If you're a good concealed carry citizen,
Mm-hmm.
then that's kind of like you have the same almost mindset as a good cop, if
Right.
that makes sense. Don't think that cops are out there watching all this stuff. There are good cops out there who are
Right.
that are staying focused, but a civilian that's carrying and is staying and listening to these podcasts and things like that, they're staying at the top of their game.
Right. All right. It is time for rapid fire. So I'm going to ask you these questions. Short answer. These are answers for you, not what you suggest, but your decisions, and you gotta give me an answer for each one of them. No cheating. Okay. 9 or 45.
9.
Striker fire, double action or single action only.
Striker.
Appendix or strong side hip.
Strong side hip.
In the home, pistol, rifle, or shotgun.
AR.
Use of timer in training, yes or no?
Yes.
Red dot or irons.
Red dot.
Favorite shooting drill.
Depends. I don't have like a favorite shooting
Gotcha.
drill. I don't know. A good test that I do, I like to do the hackathon.
Okay.
Or the 700 aggregate.
3 books that you would recommend that are must reads, don't have to be gun related.
Shit. Paul Howe's Tactical Trainer. I think it's a great book. I mean, I don't have books that you must read. There's a lot of great books out
Gotcha.
there. Like, just read a book. Read a book.
There you go. Please recommend one peer, teacher, trainer, coach, or instructor, neither of the guest hosts.
Northern Red.
Cool. And medical training that you would recommend, like any company in particular.
I believe North American Rescue puts on some classes and things like that. With the right equipment, you can get some bad training and actually learn some pretty good life-saving stuff as in medical. So any sort of medical training is good.
Cool. B.
Not me yet, brother. What he's got coming up and stuff, and then to the guest host.
So what do you have? Anything you have coming up? Where people can get in touch with you? All that type of good stuff.
All social media is Wrestling Group Training. Go to wrestlinggrouptraining.com. We got a lot of courses coming up. Our 2019 is filling up now, pretty good. So check out our social media, like us on social media, follow us. And with that, you got questions, send me emails or messages on that. I'm pretty good about answering everybody and doing stuff. I like to communicate and I like to talk about these things. So don't be like, if I get enough of them, I'll put it out there and we'll start answering and doing some things.
Oh, cool. That is awesome. Lee, you got anything coming up, or where can people get hold of you?
First Person Safety, my Facebook page, and that firstpersonsafety.com as far as the web page goes. Classes I've got coming up. I've got on November the 11th, I've got just a 4-hour revolver clinic that is basically aimed at the beginning shooter, especially ladies whose husband, boyfriend, or gun shop guy has convinced them that a J-frame will rule the world. I had a private lesson here recently that went really well, and the student said, "Hey, could you please open this up and do this for other people?" So that's kind of the basis of that class. And then December the 9th, up at the Red Hill Range in Martin, Georgia, I've got my more pistol skills class, which is kind of my follow-on second level class. That's kind of really like a yo-yo effect. One drill will make you push to the limit, and then the next minute makes you dial back, and next drill makes you dial back and shoot a bullseye. And then we push hard again, and then we go back and we shoot a bullseye course again. Just trying to make people shoot appropriate to the problem. And those are the last 2 courses I have that are open with any seats left for 2018. 2019, I'll be at the only thing I've got scheduled right at the moment. I'll be presenting at the Rangemaster Tactical Conference in March in New Orleans.
Cool. Alex, how can people get a hold of you and anything you have coming up?
So our website is ridgelinesshooting.com. You can find pretty much everything there is to do Ridgeline there. From we've got some of our own products being released soon. So we have complete SPR uppers, and then after the first of the year, complete SPRs. We're a really big believer in the SPR and scope carbine, and so we've done a lot of work in testing certain barrel profiles, barrel characteristics that we think are going to be able to give kind of end users exactly what they're looking for, be it somebody, whether it's civilian, just trying to like kind of bridge that gap into precision rifle shooting, where this is kind of like a more palatable on the wallet to kind of get into, as opposed to buying a whole rig that's a known standard that it will shoot. Comes with a test target, so you know what it's going to do. And then we're also a huge believer in SPR and scope carbine for law enforcement. So we're trying to give these guys an option where, again, some of the cash-strapped departments that can't go big and buy a $10,000 rig to give one of their snipers, they can buy a rig or an upper for a lot less money and have the same capability that they need. So that's something we got coming down, and more of that will be released on our website soon. Big news for 2019 is we've got a new home up here in New Hampshire. It's aboard the Team O'Neill Rally School, which for anybody, again, officer safety. I mean, too many guys get hurt, especially up here with inclement weather and stuff. Responding to calls, single vehicle, motor vehicle accidents. Up here we got a lot of back roads. We've got ice, we've got snow, we've got rain. So they teach a lot of military government guys how to handle cars on loose terrain surfaces, or how to handle vehicles in inclement weather. It's survivability more than cool guy race school. So that's pretty cool. But we have an unbelievable range facility that we're going to have up there that we can do all of our curriculum at. And so we're going to be primarily there in 19. We'll still be doing the road show we've been doing, but I'm actually losing brain cells on the keyboard as we speak, developing the 19 schedule right now. So hopefully it was supposed to be up over the weekend. I'm still kind of finalizing some dates and stuff like that, but we should have that up here pretty soon. So online on the social media stuff, Ridgeline Defense on Instagram, Ridgeline Outfitters on Facebook. But yeah, anything like Jared said, we get a lot of questions, and I like to kind of answer them and set people in the right direction. It might be with us, it might be with somebody else, but it's better they'd be on the right path than following something stupid.
Amen, and well said, Alex. Thank you. And folks, just so you know, John Murphy chimed in the live chat to say that Lee will be at his range out here in October 12th and 13th for a defensive pistol class. So check out fpftraining.com for that, and or go to Lee Weems' site, First Person Safety. Also, folks, please check out the show notes. We have all of both our primary guest, Jared's email, his bio, all of his websites, his Facebook, his Instagram, all of his social media links there, as well as Alex's and Lee's. In our show notes, again, you can go to Firearms Radio TV or just search for us on Google. That's the best way, and it'll take you right to our show notes, or check the show notes here at the bottom of this YouTube video or any of our other places. So just do a search for Civilian Carry Radio. To become a corporate sponsor or to advertise on the show, please send me an email to baraka3@gmail.com for details. Please share, subscribe, and leave your feedback by commenting on the bottom of this YouTube video. And please give us a like, folks. That helps it go to the, pop up higher on the YouTube thing. So give us a like if you liked the episode. If you didn't like it, tell us why. Give us some feedback, because we're always trying to improve what we're doing here. Our website, again, is Firearms Radio TV, Civilian Carry Radio. We're on Twitter. Follow us there. We're also on Instagram at CC Radio 2A. We have a Facebook page. All of our audio podcasts listed. We have iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Google Play Music, Stitcher, TuneIn, and Podbean. Again, you can find all this on the show notes. Again, we thank everyone who supports us through the donations, as we are listener funded. Thank you all who have pledged and support and helped contribute to the goal of educating people on the importance of the Second Amendment, firearms, education, safety, and training. We also have various discounts from our industry partners, including Aridus Industries, ATEI, BattleComp, Dark Angel Medical, Fire Clean, Tough Products, and Jeff Gonzalez from Trident Concepts has also given us a very generous discount that is now listed there for training through his classes. So please check that out. Next Wednesday, October 31st, is Halloween, so we will not have a show. We will have a night off that night, but please join us the following Wednesday, November 7th, for our 72nd episode, where we feature a guy who only has one social media account. His name is Scotty Banks. He is a trainer and manager at Glock. He goes around the country and teaches Glock armorers courses, as well as he's a very highly renowned and respected trainer, former Marine, and his name is Mr. Instructor on Instagram. So please check the guy out. He is a phenomenal teacher. He's a beast in the gym, and he's a great instructor. So we go to Alan. Final thoughts, brother.
I can tell that that the career you chose isn't just a job. I can tell what it means to you. It's great that you're helping out fellow law enforcement and civilians doing the training and stuff you do, and you're a great example of pushing through and staying in the fight. So really appreciate having you on.
All right, thank you very much for having me.
Yep.
Alex, final thoughts, brother.
Like I said, I think Jared's, the event that Jared's probably most notable for is probably one of the best, circumstances or illustrations of staying in the fight, especially for domestic law enforcement. But more importantly, I know a lot of guys have got shot, and that was kind of it. They game over their career and wrote it out on a desk. And so being able to have the wherewithal to strap it back on day in and day out and continue on, I think that's the biggest story there. So it's been a pleasure, gentlemen.
All right, thank you. Lee, final thoughts?
Well, it's been good to finally be able to interact in person with Jared, because I've used videos of him and training our personnel for several years now. I do want to make one professional comment as far as law enforcement as a whole, and I don't think people understand this. There are 18,000 plus law enforcement agencies in the United States. 18,000. 17,984 of them, and that's not a made-up number. That's an actual number, are under state and local control. By and large, most of those agencies are 10 officers or less. People tend to think of New York, Boston, LA, Chicago, the big cities and everything in the suburbs that run around them. But most of America, most of the law enforcement out there are in tiny, tiny agencies that just don't have the funding, or they're doing everything they can do just to meet the mission that they have to do, not necessarily what they want to do. My county is one of the richest counties as far as economic development goes in the United States. I think a recent study came out. We're in the top 10% of economically developed counties in the United States. I bought new patrol rifles for everybody 2 years ago. I'm buying aim point optics for them this year.
Wow.
Okay. I'm in the richest county in Georgia, and I can't do everything in one fell swoop. And we have found creative ways to do the training and spread that throughout all our personnel. But sometimes getting the raw dollars for equipment is a challenge. And a new administration took over in the neighboring county from us in the last election, and I was giving them old used holsters so they could have better equipment for their people. And, gun guys tend to think, I just go to the gun store and I buy this gun or order it off of Brownells or whatever. Okay, try thinking of doing that across the entire agency. It's sometimes very daunting to get the money to do that. And it's just, we can't just wave a magic wand and do that. And I don't want to make this all cop stuff, but I just think that's one thing people just don't understand. And, my agency doesn't even have a SWAT team. Just because we don't have enough personnel to fund one to man one in the way that I think it needs to be done. And that's just a hard decision we had to make. And, that just the way we do things here in Oconee just would not work in Jacksonville because we're not a metro area like Jared deals with. And so there's going to be different ways and different approaches. And I'll hush now because I probably rambled too much. But Jared?
No, not at all. And before I get to Jared, because we'd like to leave the last word with our guest, I just want to tell you guys, most of you, if you're brand new listeners, you may or may not know some significant and unique things about our show. Other than our mission statement, there's some other very important things to us that we try to get people to understand, that as you as civilians and us as civilians, that it's us who are responsible for our own life and protection. Police officers do a phenomenal job. They put a target on their back every day. When they put their uniform on, they put a target. They're riding around in a target, regardless if it's a marked or undermarked vehicle. They are doing a very thankless job for the betterment of society. These people do not put this badge on because they're going to get rich. They're doing it because they care and they're giving back to society. And that's why we support you. My father, may God rest his soul, was a police officer. And, I've always had respect for law enforcement, and we want to shine the light on the people who are out here doing this work. We want you as civilians to understand, to assist and not where to do what's right and what's not, so that you don't go to jail or we don't go to jail. And we want people to understand, again, that police officers aren't Superman. I have a law enforcement officer that lives literally 10 houses down from me, and all of the uninformed neighbors that I have that I'm trying to constantly educate that they need to take care of their own safety say, oh, well, that guy's there's a cop that lives right down the street. Well, you and every other person within 5 miles thinks that deputy who's off work, that's why his car's sitting in front of his house, is going to come and save you when there's a crisis time. He's going to have his family load in that car, and he's going to be on the road. That's why we have. And we also want to equip law enforcement officers who are out there doing what they do with better knowledge. Like it said, unfortunately, it's like Jared said, a lot of them won't listen to, but we're constantly trying to urge them by having career law enforcement officers, ones who have survived violent encounters and things like that, on the show to better perpetuate them staying alive and us staying alive, and how we can bridge this gap between civilians, because there's so much misunderstanding. And I just thank all of you guys, brothers and sisters in law enforcement out there, like Jared and like Lee, and, all the military vets like Alex, and all the law abiding civilians that actually care and take in, the responsibility for their lives. Like, Alan, it's important, guys. That's why we're doing what we're doing, because this is something we're passionate about. As American citizens, we have this right to protect ourselves. It's God-given right. And I hope more people will take heed and understand. And I just want to thank you guys for your time, for your service to the community, what you do both in the military, law enforcement, and as civilians. And I will now shut up and pass the last final thought to you, Jared. Thank you so much for being here.
All right. I'll kind of piggyback off what you're saying. You're exactly right about you need to be responsible for you and your family. The police will do their best to get there quick enough and all that. But when I'm not in uniform or I'm not doing stuff, I still carry a gun because I know that I gotta protect my family. It's just like being a concealed carry, civilian. I mean, I might have to do some different things, but I don't carry a gun when I'm off duty to arrest people. I carry it for protection and protection of my family. And that's key to this. So one thing that I want to leave you with is go to the range with a plan. You wouldn't go to the gym and just look at some machines and push some random weight around. I hate when people just say, hey, I went to the range. I was like, what'd you do? Well, I shot 300 rounds. Well, what'd you do? They don't really know what they did. They just put some holes in paper. Go with a plan, just like it would be, frickin' chest day or whatever it is. Like, hey, this is an accuracy day. This is that. Have something ready to go and have a plan that you can put into play. And then you'll watch your training really elevate from that point on.
All right. Thank you so much, Jared. And thank you so much, Alex, Jared, Lee, Alan, for being here, for giving your time to help give back to the community. God bless you guys. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
And thank you guys for having me.
Thank you.
All right, folks. Please stay vigilant. Take care. Be safe. God bless you all. Have a good night. Thank you so much.